Unless you want to make clay renders, you will always need materials in Blender to really show what your object is. Now, if we go to the materials panel underneath the properties, we can see that we have some options here. I have my cube selected. I am in shading mode in rendered, so in rendered view. And here I can now create on new. This automatically creates a new material for me. Now I can click on material and give it a name. Tutorial material. That sounds fun. Now, with the material which is assigned to this cube, I can do a few stuff. I can open the preview tab to see how that's going to look like. I can choose from different objects to get a good sense of my material's end result. Underneath the preview, I have the surface. And this is the area where we can adjust our material. In this case, we are using a principled BSDF. If I were to click on this, I can choose from different types of surfaces or even shaders. Now, I don't want to change this because 9 out of 10 times you will be working with principled BSDF, especially if you're going to use textures. Now, I can change the base color of my material and give it a greenish color. I can turn it into metallic or not. I can adjust the roughness to make it more shiny or more rough so light doesn't reflect. And I can also change the alpha to make it transparent. We also have the option to, for example, make it an emissive, which means that it gives off light. I'm going to put it on 0. And a lot of other options that we will get to maybe later, but for now, it's not something to worry about. Now, I did say that we will be talking about the shading window or the shading workspace. If I click on this, you will see that everything that we have here underneath surface is also part of this node. And we can left mouse click and select our nodes. Now, let me click on the N button to bring up my nodes and their options. So just like the layout window, underneath shading, we can click on the N and on the T to show the tools available to us when we are in the shading window. And here, as you can see, we are using nodes. I can turn that off, but if I do, then our material will either stop working. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what's really happening. Because we have here base color, and that's basically this color which we have here, which we can adjust. But as you can see, we have this yellow circle here, which we can extend. And here we could say that we want to use a checker texture with a color. And here we can change its colors and how it should look like. Now, underneath our base color, we can now expand this and we get the properties of this checker texture right here. So if you are unfamiliar with nodes and you really don't like working with them, you don't have to go to the surface area. You could do all things manually here. But there are advantages to using nodes, and I really suggest that you really try to invest some time to learn the basics of it, which we will also be covering in the more advanced tutorial series. But for now, let's focus on this area. You just noticed that I added a checker texture inside my shading window. I will be deleting that for now. And the moment I do, you see that it also gets deleted here. Now you could also click on this yellow circle, just like here, to add one of the options available to you. So the checker texture is also here. And the moment I add it, Blender is adding all of this in the background, so you don't really have to worry about it. So that really makes it much easier to get the result that you want without having all the knowledge in the world about nodes and how they work. Now, I am going to delete this for a second, and what I'll do next is something you don't have to worry about. If you want to follow along though, and if you want to use the node system, I do suggest that you turn on Node Wrangler. You can do so by going to Edit, Preferences, go to Add-ons, and search for Node and turn on Node Wrangler. Once you're done, just close the window. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is just click on my principled PSTF node and then click on Ctrl-Shift-T. Then I'm going to select these 4 textures and open them. And because I'm using the Node Wrangler will automatically set all of these up for me without me having to worry about them. I could have done this manually. I could have added a base color, roughness, displacement, and a normal. And keep in mind, these are all just images. And on the left side, we are doing the mapping, so giving the texture coordinates. So the scaling, rotation, and location of our textures. For example, I could rotate it. In any given direction. I could even scale it, so maybe I will select all these and put it on 4 to make it bigger or smaller. But these are also stuff that you can do within your material properties. Let me close this down for a second. Okay, so as you can see, we have added all of these with one click on a button. And that's the cool part about using nodes. Now, what I want to do in this video is just explain the basics of using textures with materials. We're not going to dive into this whole system. This is a more advanced element to focus on. But it's important to at least know how to add a base color, a roughness, a displacement, and a normal to create a material that you want. So if you want to add any of these and we're not using the Node Wrangler, we can simply click on Shift-A on our keyboard in an empty area and choose what we want to add from this drop-down panel. If you don't know where to find it, you can always search for it. For example, texture coordinates, underneath input or mapping. But for now, let's just focus on these 4 images that we have here. So when you're creating a material, you add a color or a base color, an albedo, or a diffuse texture. And as you can see here, this texture doesn't have any shadows. It's just a flat texture with purely the colors of that material. So that's what the base color exists of. And it is in the color space of sRGB because it contains color data. Underneath there, we got the roughness. And the roughness, you might not be able to see it, but it's a black and white non-color image that tells Blender that, hey, some parts should be shiny and some parts should not be shiny. Displacement works the same way. A black and white image, which is a non-color image, that tells Blender, hey, these are areas that you should displace the image, so add depth, and these are areas where it should go inside. So you're creating 3D data through the usage of an image. We also have the normal map, which is a purple non-color image. A normal map is the easiest to recognize because it's always purple, blue, greenish, and based on this, Blender or your render engine knows that an image should look 3D or look like it has some depth, but in fact it's flat. So if I were to pick this light source, and let me just show the controls and bring this down a bit, we can see that we are getting these shadows thanks to the normal map. If I were to, for example, unlink the normal map, you will see that our shadows are going to behave differently. Now the fact that this still works is because we have a displacement map. With that removed, you now see that we don't have any depth. It's all flat and the shadows don't really make sense at all. So let me connect the normal map again, and we can see that indeed we get a sense of depth in our image without having to add any mesh or any extra polygons. Okay, so that's basically the 4 images that you're going to use, which you connect to your base color, roughness, normal. And keep in mind that all of them are always have to be set on non-color except your base color texture. Now let's go back to our layout and let's go to our material. You might have noticed that we have a plus and a minus sign here. So in fact, I could add another texture to this object. I'm going to click on New, and the material has been created. If you remember, we can go into Edit mode, and we can select Faces. Now I can select one of these faces, and click on the material that I want and assign it to that specific face. I can create multiple materials, and once again select the face that I want and assign it to it. So an object does not always exist out of one material. It can have multiple materials if you want. And later down the road, you will also learn how to unwrap and do more complex stuff, and learn how to paint and create really cool textures and materials that you're going to be really proud of. But it's important to know that materials are not one-sided. There's not just one material per object and you constantly have to create new stuff. You can add more materials, and we can also do a lot more, which we'll be taking a look later down the road. For now, I would say click on Shift A, create a cube, go to the materials panel, add a material and play around. And if you ever accidentally change a material, know that you can click on this icon and choose from one of the materials that you have created previously in this project and just assign it like that. For now, have fun trying this out, and whenever ready, I'll see you in the next video.